Table with Ma'am Lou. I'm your host, Larry Elson. In the studio with me as well as my brother, Dr. Bradley. He had to go take a little medicine there.
Yeah, I had to. When we start talking about Jesus being lynched as opposed to black men and women being lynched in the South and using lynching, I just can't. I can't see how we can use.
This is why this country is in the shape it is, because people try to turn and twist it. Yeah. And then I'm going to call him out like President Biden did with Trump. Dan tries to be masterful at trying to pretend that something what isn't what it is. It's just like the other day on the show, his show, Sal Travels, and I told him, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. He said, "Oh yes, you can." I'm not saying that you can never yell fire in a crowded theater. If there's a fire, If there is no fire, you have a problem.
Oh, yes, right.
You have a problem.
You're responsible for all the injuries
that
occur
because so if you tell people you're gonna, you get them all ginned up, you tell them that a big lie, that the election was stolen from them, and that this is illegitimate, and that you're there for democracy, right? A lot of people, once again, they were brainwashed into thinking that this was true, even though the facts did not support any of these lies.
That's right.
So don't come here with them. You're not going to get away with it here. I'm sorry. Now, if you get your broadcast, you want to tell people that the sky is blue or purple or green or whatever color you think it is, you go right ahead.
Well, I tend not to debate with someone who's out in the left field like that. I just don't get it.
They're not even left field. They're not even on the field.
I don't get it.
Not even in the bleachers.
I can't begin to do it.
No, but the other thing is, Dr. Brown, I appreciate you, Jamal, is you have to put that down. That's why this country is where it is now, because there are people who believe that. If they believe it and it doesn't go forcefully, pushed against, when people that's how a lie starts. If people say it enough and nobody else says it's not,
everybody started
believing it. They say, they must know the truth.
But at my age, I may have a heart attack. It's like, who argued with that? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. As a man of Christ, you know better than that.
We want to thank our sponsor, Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company, located at 75 State Street, Boston, Mass. 02109. For all your mortgage concerns, give Cora Holbrook a call there at 781-342-0252. Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. Like I said, this is just why this country is as screwed up as it is. And why people are the phones ablaze, because even folks who were there, who witnessed this insurrection, whether people were charged with it or not, the investigation is continuing. What's coming out in the Congress, in that it's a shame, because the truth, it's not something they even want to deal with, the Republican side of the aisle, right?
Pretend that it didn't happen.
Right. And so it didn't happen, right? And, here it happened, and we're going to tell the truth about it. Right?
Well, that's one piece of it. And the other piece is, and this is what I think people losing sight of. How do you expect for me to believe what you're saying that you would do for me if I select you and vote for you, when you're going to tell me that what I saw on January the 6th is not what I saw?
Right.
But you're going to lie to me, so you assault my capital, and then you insult my intelligence.
Right.
And so how do you expect for me to believe that you're going to be truthful?
But here's the other piece, Dr. Bradley, that is so paramount and important about that lie and what happened at the Capitol, because as a result of that lie is why these conservatives and Republicans around the country are trying to deny the voting of people of color, right? Yes. So that lie has a bigger consequence as well that people aren't paying attention to. That lie is attributing that this is the reason for we have to justify changing the voting rights for certain people.
But what they're saying also is that the reason why that lie is actually running and rapidly running around is because black people determined Joe Biden will be the president.
That's right.
So when you look at Detroit, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, all these major urban cities, urban environments were highly populated by black folks. That win shift, the swing states towards Joe Biden. What they're saying is that black folks shouldn't have the right to determine who's going to run our country. And when you look at the history of America, that is consistent.
Right.
So when he says, when I had the conservative news media or Trump said this is invalid, they're saying that the black bloc voting is invalid.
Absolutely.
That's how I read it.
No, you read it correctly. You read it correctly. And you can take your glasses off and you can still read it correctly. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Round Table. Caller, you there? Okay, caller number 1, you there? I know his phones are hot this morning.
First one is Jamal.
Jamal, you back with us?
Hold on, I got it.
Jamal, you there?
Jamal.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we have some technical. Okay, you want to weigh in?
Oh, yeah, no, I thought I heard a sister as well.
You did. That's call number 2.
Okay, that's call number 2. We're going to get you, and then we're going to grab the other call. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, well, just to finish up on the point of the capital thing, because, obviously I'm still waiting on the BPD.
Yep, we're
thing.
going to switch right to that. Yep, take this other call.
Yep. But the, with the capital thing, you're talking about, like, how people could just, recreate the truth and like, don't believe your lying eyes and all this type of stuff.
Right.
Right. See, because the narrative, I believe, that's getting created, if you remember before that they wanted to have, like, voter ID, right? Or what if there's a voter test?
Well, remember how many bubbles in a bar of soap?
Right. You see what I'm saying? Or even if it goes based on, you have to come, but you have to show proof of, last year's taxes. Or, there's a bunch of things that could be done to create barriers that would then block out the segment that they don't want, which, yes, is black people.
Yep.
But it's also, too, that segment of Latino people that don't vote with them. You know what I mean? Like the inner city Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, they don't like those Latinos. They like the ones with the Texas hats and the belt buckle. They vote
Cubans,
like they do.
And the Cubans.
And then in general, poor people. Maybe you got to have more than $40,000 a year to be eligible to vote. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a litmus test that you have to pass. I want to bring this other caller in. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable because I want to shift gears and get your take on this selection committee. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning.
So my commentary is basically on how this mayor is working out so far.
Okay, so then stand by because I think we're going to pivot in part of that conversation. Just 1 second. We're going to switch gears here, folks, for a moment because this past week, Mayor Wu, on Wednesday, I believe, Wednesday or Thursday of this week, she announced her selection committee search panel for the next police commissioner in the city of Boston. And she has 5 people on there. Former Supreme Court Justice Geraldine Hines is chairing that committee, and there's other folks on there like Pastor William Dickerson. But the name that jumped out for those of us in Mamleo, including myself as time as president of Mamleo, is that she has put former police commissioner Ed Davis on this selection committee. And folks, if you don't know the history of Ed Davis, going back to his time down in Lowell when he was a detective down there, there's a case there that a person of color was falsely accused of a crime, and he was exonerated. Ed Davis was part of that whole thing, and there was a lot of shenanigans going on with that. But then from late Mayor Tom Menino tapped him to be the police commissioner here in Boston prior to Billy Evans taking over. In his time here, he enacted a truthfulness policy, which was never here in the city of Boston Police Department. I have a problem with truthfulness, but then it was a weapon that was used against people of color, particularly black officers that were this new policy. And in certain instances, if you were a white officer and you got in trouble under this policy, it was inaccurate reporting, but it was always untruthfulness when it came to black police officers. He was also the police commissioner who terminated, not terminated, but demoted a black detective from detective patrolman because he had done all his due diligence on an investigation in his district in Roxbury. It had nothing to do with the white woman that was murdered in South Boston, but he had to pay the ultimate price, and he was demoted back to detective for that. Also, during my time there, we had to bring numerous lawsuits against Commissioner Davis for his racist policies and termination of black folks under the drug testing and just a litmus of other things that he has done here. If you Google his name, they all pop up. Mamleo took a vote of no confidence against him along with the NAACP and other community activists in the community. So why the mayor would think that this individual would be a proper and a good selection to help enact and look for the next police commissioner when he shouldn't have even served in that capacity himself is beyond me. So I just wanted to set the table a little bit before I let you folks weigh in. Dr. Bradley, feel free to chime in. I want to go back to our callers, but I'm seeing you sitting over there with bated breath.
Well, I'm sitting over here and I'm saying to myself, how can we move forward when we keep reaching backwards? Because all the things that you put on the table, absolutely true. I was a part of the department when Davis was here, was there. And I also recall that the union voted a non-confidence in him as well. So he's one of the few commissioners where Mamleo and the union voted a non-confidence in the commission.
Right.
Usually it's one or the other.
Right.
For the both of them to actually come together and and be unified in their opinion. That
Right.
speaks volumes about how they felt about that particular.
Right.
Commission.
And also, to add insult to injury even more, was that I think with that catalyst with the detective's demotion, but prior to there was an opening for positions, 5 positions to the position of sergeant. There were 2 black officers who had the same mark as 5. He promoted an all-white promotion of sergeants at that time, and it wasn't until we came after him that he then decided, this doesn't look good.
Right.
It was right there with the same mark. It wasn't like you had to bypass anyone to get to him. So his history disqualifies him from this position. So, Helen, go ahead, call it. Helen, I want to get your take first, and I want to go back to Jamal because I know he's got some things to say as well.
So how this mayor is working out so far, just thinking racially with all her waxing nostalgic Menino, and it's like, okay, if you can't see her daddy issues by now, you have to open your eyes from her free the tea and make it electric, and her CTO dad, who doesn't exist, but whose specialty is lithium batteries, to Big Menino, who gave her that cherry internship in 2009, 2010, his I'm not a racist Asian beard, as few Asians in BPD in City Hall. When BPD graduation yesterday, probably no Asian Pacific Islander woman, likely only 2 Asian men with one's name having been butchered. Then she goes from her Menino ghastly love fest to hiring a new comms chief, Jessica Pierre, who calls Asian eyes chinky, silence from her on it, so okay. Who's next? Corporation Counsel, who calls dark skin N-wordly? Like, what racist will show up next? So then, come on down, Ed Davis. Like, are you kidding me? There's no more status quo? Like, Ed Davis, who gets credit for firing Justin Barrett when Justin Barrett got a pass from Davis, until he went after a Globe reporter when he was known back in the academy to be racist and sexist with the comms. Jermaine Bedford was right there, complicit or at best complacent. Who gives him a chief spot, too? But then back to Grand Poobah Davis there. It's like, you mentioned earlier how January 6th, a year ago, was the first time Confederate flag was flown in the Capitol. Well, it wasn't not the first for a BPD cop online who professed his love for Confederate flags numerous ways. Used slurs for minorities, sexist stuff too. They have his gay-hating, slurring text messages recorded in black and white. And then now, not black and white, but audio recorded, a lieutenant detective and a sergeant detective, both on recording, stated unequivocally there is no credible evidence that she was not raped, a minority officer, by that Confederate flag-loving, openly racist officer. Then you have Ed Davis, who in his so-called open door policy writes back to that officer the reasons why you have not been reinstated to full duty. For example, you have characterized the department's review of your allegations of rape as cover-up. So Davis and Wu have seen plenty of evidence of cover-up, plenty of evidence about this openly racist white cop raping a minority cop. Wu knows Davis's involvement, but her Harvard-y self wants to play dumb, just like Cliff McHale and Pat Rose that I told her about. Like, really?
So, Jamal, I want to bring Jamal in. Jamal, you've heard a lot here.
Yeah, I mean, so Ed Davis, was probably at the height of my activism. We did at that time a diversity chart for the Boston Police Department, and no surprise to you guys who work there. As you know, command staff was almost all white, and was just very obvious, particularly when we created the visual based on the data. But Ed Davis, too, he oversaw so many major cases, not just dealing with on-the-job discrimination and harassment for you officers, but also some of the hot-button cases at the time that were out in the city in terms of whether it was police brutality or a shooting or what have you. Ed Davis was never viewed as a commissioner of the people, if you will. So even when you go to somebody like Willie Gross, who gets that kind of reputation. Oh, everybody liked Willie Gross, whatever, because he was, a nice, happy kind of fellow. That was not with Ed Davis. Ed Davis had a very different type of personality. He was very standoffish, and I mean, he was just not a favorite of the people. With all the scandals that he was involved in, that's just a poor choice. The only good thing that I could say about his choice being on the selection committee is that pretty much guarantees us that he ain't coming back as commissioner. Right?
Well, not necessarily.
And then also, too, I also want to say some of the other appointments. One, Abigail Forrester, who I know, right? And Abigail has recently taken over Teen Empowerment. And I'm concerned there because Teen Empowerment was also one of the organizations who I've been critical of over the years based off of a program that they have dealing with police and the youth. But this program is very one-sided, meaning the police come there and say, Johnny, if you ever meet us, you should be polite and, mind your manners and all that. But the kids say, well, I got busted in my head by a police. We're not here to talk about that, So it was a very one-sided youth and police relationship. And in fact, one of the main scandals, I was actually trying to do the research right here because my memory is really not good like it used to be. But one of the officers who was involved in one of the main scandals was actually one of their poster children, like Officer Friendly guy who did all of the community outreach and whatnot. And here he is, got involved in his own scandal, dealing with police brutality and over excessive policing. But in any event, I say all that to say that when it comes to choosing a commissioner, clearly I just wish that there had been more communication from City Hall to the people who've been involved in it. Geraldine Hines, her reputation is, nobody could say nothing bad about her.
Stellar. That's a great point.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's good. And, it reminds me of the task force I was on when they picked, like, Wayne Budd. So, bump. So you got your Geraldine Hines. That's great. The choice of Ed Davis, I think, is inappropriate.
Absolutely.
I definitely would love to have a conversation with Abigail based on his involvement with Teen Empowerment and what their view on policing and their relationship with youth is. Pastor Dickerson as well. Over the years, I know him to be more involved with prison reform and things like that. So I would really like to check his temperature, see where he's at on policing. And then the young lady attorney who they named, I do not know, and just saw that she was from BU's Center for Anti-Racist Study.
Right, but when you have someone, like I said, I think it hurts the credibility of it when you have someone of the magnitude of Ed Davis with his track record of any fairness to anyone of people of color. That's just not progressing. It's regression and all the things, and there's a lot more that we spoke to and that Helen spoke to. It's readily available. This is just like a rookie error.
A fair question for that committee would say, okay, the committee meets. A fair question for any member of the press or public, I know I would ask it. Would this committee, right, return an Ed Davis as a recommendation?
Yeah.
See, because like this committee that Ed Davis is on, could they recommend that Ed Davis? And so it's like if you're not there to be like if you couldn't be picked, then you shouldn't be doing the picking.
Thank you.
He's right on. I do agree with that. Hold up. I agree with that. But I feel bad for the person they select because if you have a committee of people that and one or two of those individuals in that committee are suspect, and then that committee put forward an individual with good intentions, that individual was already under the microscope. So I feel bad for that person who was coming in to try to implement the level of change that Wu says she wants based on what she has there. Now, I don't know a lot of those other folks, but I have experienced the wrath of Ed Davis myself, all right? And I know what this individual does, how closet he is as it relates to his racism. He appears to be okay, but in actuality, he's probably in that George Wallace area, as it relates to his temperature around racism. So he is a very bad choice. And so to stand before the community of color and say, I am, pushing for a reform,
Right.
you should not be reaching backwards to find
Right.
people who actually are going to be forward thinking. I'm just saying.
No, because and that's a perfect way, because you have something to gauge it by. He was the former police commissioner here, and what was his record on transformation other than in a negative way, right? So why would you
That's what
think
I'm
that
saying.
he would have any valuable input
Yeah.
in helping to select the next police commissioner? That somehow that mindset has changed.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
And not for nothing, I wouldn't want him. I wouldn't want either of the Evans brothers.
Right.
I wouldn't want Willie Gross.
Right.
I wouldn't want Dunford. I wouldn't want
Right.
Linsky. I wouldn't want anybody of that ilk
Yeah,
that
exactly.
represents that good old boy network of
Yeah.
that command staff. You know, it needs to be somebody who is outside of that thinking.
And one can argue, and this is my other my other hit. One could argue that, well, he's only one person, and you have other individuals who are fair thinking individuals on the committee that will overrule him. But he's the only one who have sat in the seat. He's the only one who has run the police, the commission of Boston. So he's going to carry a lot of weight in persuasion.
Do you know how
And
many
that's where
lawsuits
I'm
the city has
concerned.
had to
Exactly.
settle that we brought against him
Yeah.
for his racism, for Ed Davis, to how much money he has cost the city? And this is the person that you're choosing to be part of your selection committee?
He's a poor choice.
Jamal and Helen, stand by. We got another call I want to bring into the. Good morning, caller. Welcome to At the Round Table with Mamley.
Good morning. I'm calling from the outside looking in. Calling from Maryland.
A familiar
How you all
voice.
doing today?
Good morning, Mr. Leon Rock, one of the broadcasters
well, he-
here on Friday.
well,
But you have a good perspective, and we'd like to hear it.
And he's as
Actually, I
snowed
wanted
in
to
as we are.
comment about the selection process for, how the mayor selected these individuals, particularly Ed Davis. And I was on a broadcast with Sister Priscilla and actually former Senator just a couple of days ago.
Diane Wilkerson, yeah. Mhm.
Diane Wilkerson, correct. And there was a conversation and debate about the issue of including and why weren't members of MAMLEO or a member of MAMLEO placed on the commission because of the importance and sensitivity of the issue of making sure that minority folks, black folks in particular, have some input. I'm talking about police officers, have some input into the selection process. And I was shocked and surprised that the senator's comments, and I did raise the question to the senator directly, so I'm not talking behind her back or anything. I was shocked and surprised at the fact that the senator was taking a position that it was okay not to exclude MAMLEO because she didn't believe that the sitting police officers should be part of the selection process. I'm shocked that
I was shocked as well. I heard it. Yeah, I was on the call.
Well, I would have responded. My rebuttal to that would have been, I am a member of MAMLEO, but I am a retired former deputy superintendent of the Boston Police Department. Someone like myself should be serving on that committee. All right. I can hear her saying, what, someone's actively involved. No, you have members of MAMLEO who have spent many years in policing, understands the very roots and guts of law enforcement in the city and the issues that our people of color are dealing with, who are retired, they could sit on that committee and be very, very fair in their assessment.
Right, but to bring other callers, but to Leon's point, her objection of someone, even if they're active or not,
I don't agree with that.
but yet you have no objection to Ed Davis being on this committee. I'm surprised.
I'm surprised as well.
Who is like Willie Gross, who Jamal mentioned? She'll do anything to be liked, and by 20% of the voters, because only about 20%, not anywhere close to a majority of registered voters voted for her. And well, she knows Ed Davis and his racism, but that's the only cop, current or former, that she goes with.
Yeah.
on her search committee.
Yeah,
Come on.
I wouldn't have the time to do it myself, but I think that people like myself who are retired, are members of MAMLEO who would serve, would be excellent on that committee. Would have been excellent on that committee.
And this is not a pat. I served on MAMLEO for 10 years, the longest serving president in its history. And I'm not saying that the selection had to be me, but I also sit as one of the commissioners on the POST, the Police Oversight Standards and Training, appointed by the governor and the attorney general of the Commonwealth, because and the reason they intentionally was having someone from that organization, right, who knows about what's been going on for police officers of color.
Yes.
The importance of that. This was not just this was an intention. This is a seat that is there dedicated to the association, not to me, to the association, so that we have a voice at the table.
Yes.
And here we have a mayor who's going to put someone who just was in opposition of everything that we stand for as part of her selection committee. Jamal?
I don't see it. I just don't understand why she would do something like that. That's a rookie mistake.
The only thing that I could say is it must be that these folks are really not aware of the reputation. And, I know that journalists have been calling me, and I've already did a piece on it on NBC 10, although we talked for a half an hour and they cut down to 2 sentences. But a lot of people have the same concerns, and as you said, Larry, that man cost the city of Boston a lot of money, and tens of millions of dollars of lawsuits. And I think that when that tally comes up, when more, I really think that being a young administration, I for some reason I'm assuming that they weren't aware to the depths of,
Jamal, Michelle Wu was on the city council, and we brought these to her attention. So she's well aware. She's not someone coming from the outside, right? She's well aware. And, at this day and age, you can put somebody's name in here. Exactly. And all this stuff that we're speaking of is easily available. And not just his time here, but his time in Lowell should give folks pause. Leon, and like I said, I want to go back to your comment about what former Senator Wilkerson, because I was on that call. I was really taken aback that she then also, put up all these accolades on what I would bring to this conversation, but she didn't think that someone like me should serve. And I didn't have to be me. Like I said, it could be someone like former Deputy Superintendent Bradley, Dr. Bradley, but someone who has some background in the Boston Police Department and how it operates. Because as stellar as I think former Supreme Court Justice Geraldine Hines is, I would be willing to take all of those folks except Ed Davis, the police headquarters, then tell them to identify to me where the police commissioner's office is if there were no signs.
They wouldn't know.
Right. So if you don't even know where the office is, there's not much you know about the internal workings, and that's not to be disparaging to them. That's just the reality of the situation, because now you're going to have these community meetings. There's a couple of them. So who is going to be there informing these folks in that audience about what's going on? And it should be on a regular basis, not just for a 90-minute Zoom meeting, which most likely it will take place. Leon?
I say that black police officers in Boston have to have a voice in that conversation. Nationally, if you look at best practices, and actually I'm on the Police Foundation's website on best practices and best approaches to actually do a recruitment of a chief executive officer for the police department, that you try to recruit the best people as part of the recruitment process. And one of the best people as part of the recruitment process would be an interest group, such as a trade association, such as MAMLEO, to be able to equalize the conversation. This has been a problem for the Boston city of Boston for many a year. This is, you all know better than I, that the police department, just like the fire department, had to be sued in order to get representation into the police department. And here we are in 2022 with a person that said that they were going to hear the voices of community, and that she would be a different administrator, a different leader that heard the voices, and unfortunately, obviously, she has not. I think this issue has to be raised to the mayor, that there has to be the inclusion of Ma'am Leo in this selection process. That's an opinion from the outside looking in. I know my dear brother Wayne is probably rolling in his grave right now as a former homicide detective hearing this situation happen in 2022. Come on now, we got to do better.
Absolutely. And to that point, Leon, one of the things that current Mayor Wu has said over and over is that when she was first elected as city council, how she felt like an outsider every time she went in that building. And here she is in a situation where she's making an organization such as Ma'am Leo feel like an outsider on an issue as important as the selection of the police commissioner. How she felt is how she's making us feel today by her actions as an outsider on an issue that we should be front and center in this conversation. No one has advocated more for change in the Boston Police Department than Ma'am Leo has.
Yeah. And again,
stop.
And
I don't necessarily.
Who knows who Mutt Davis is? She and I had a same thing. She and I had a sit down in 2014. Told her Rose screams out sex offender too. She's playing deaf, dumb, and blind. And then looking at her comms chief in black and white called Asian Eyes Chinky and more, she acts like nothing.
Right. But a lot of these issues, as we were just alluding to, were under Ed Davis's watch. I mean, the worst police commissioner to pick. I'm not saying there's any good one from the selection that she would have to choose from. She probably shouldn't even went there looking for an internal on how the police department. You think he's going to talk about all the bad things he did?
No, he's not.
And what a police commissioner should not do?
No, he's not. But I don't disagree with. I'm sorry. Go on. Someone was speaking.
Jamal, go ahead. Dr. Bradley.
No, I was just going to say, no, he's certainly not. And because this is a small task force, or committee rather, I don't even know that like these things will be challenged internally in the group. Like now we have to have a conversation with Pastor Dickerson. We have to have a conversation with Abigail Forrester, because I don't know. They were there for some of it, but I don't know if they know the depths of the history of Ed Davis and how that could have negative effects for us.
Right, but also...
and Ed Davis being the only cop that she chooses,
right,
they're going to give him deference because they're going to assume that he's the one who's been... Exactly. You tend to defer to people who have a background. Like if we were talking about something in the PhD form and I'm in Dr. Bell, I'm going to defer to his experience in that area because I don't know much about it.
That was my point. My point is I can see the logic of having a former commissioner on. I'm not necessarily in agreement with that particular individual, but I understand that the people that, looking at the composition of the committee, that you need someone there who understand how the job is run. Right. However, I also think it's important to have someone there who can represent those individuals in the department who has been alienated and disenfranchised. I think it's important to have those individuals to hear that voice as well, because because the issue becomes who creates the questions that will be asked to the candidate, and so if you don't create those right questions, then you're not going to be able to gauge where that candidate is on those issues. So it's important to have, the disenfranchised represented at the
table. And to your point, Dr. Bradley, that Ed Davis would most likely curtail his questions towards somebody who is in the mindset of him.
Yes.
Because that's what he's looking for.
Yes.
Because then that also brings, if a lot of the people that are still part of the command structure of the Boston Police Department were there under Ed Davis.
I agree. So it's important to have a representative, a previous commissioner, and I can think of many. Someone like if he was in his right, Bill Celesta would be an excellent, because he has served in that capacity. Right. But you can't come to me to say that I'm looking for reform, I'm looking for change, and change for the best of everyone, when you don't have people who can represent those disenfranchised communities as a part of that of that committee. I just don't see it.
You can't tell me you want reform and you bring somebody wearing bell bottoms in 2022. To the table.
Well, now come on, brother. That was my childhood.
No, but I'm just saying, it's outdated.
Yeah.
And
Well, I guess one can argue that I am.
that's coming back. Leo, I know you've got to run, so before we do any parting words from you, sir, and thank you for calling. I appreciate
thank
it.
you, and I appreciate you all. Thank you for the work that you all do. You all are amazing.
Thank you, sir. All right, enjoy your day.
Okay.
So, Helen, you've had some interesting, time with the BPD as well. I mean, this has gotten to be troubling in so many ways, to see we're just recycling. Like, we can't find anyone. If this is progression, we keep recycling. I know Boston wants to be known for recycling, but in some ways, you got to throw out the trash. Just let it go.
Exactly. And then to Jamal's point, where if the committee members don't know, or maybe trying to say that Wu doesn't know, she knows. And ignorance will only go so far as an excuse. Because then, even if you go with that argument, assuming that they don't know, then that's even worse. Because then that shows how little Wu actually cares about police reform, how little she cares that the right person is selected as the next Boston Police Commissioner, and how little she meant, or maybe that she was lying when she said that she was going to change things.
Yeah.
When that's the only cop she picked.
Yeah, it's very disappointing.
Current or former.
Very
be on that search committee.
Very disappointing. We got to bring this new caller in. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Good morning. Hello?
Yes.
Hey,
Good.
How you doing?
Good morning. Happy New Year.
I'd like to ask two questions. My first question is, when a new mayor does pick the next police commissioner, how do we, as the people and voters, know that the next police commissioner that the mayor picks isn't going to be a puppet to Michelle Wu? And second, for someone like Michelle Wu who is pushing for these new professional ideas, what in the hell, or would it make any sense for her to go back in time to pick out 80 of the previous police commissioners, even though she wants to make Boston move forward in the 21st century?
Right. I mean, we've been trying to find that answer, and when you're the leader of the city, the top official here, this one here was not hard to discover had anybody just put the name in, Ed Davis. All of this information was readily available. So there's no excuse for this. This is a blunder beyond blunder. There's no excuse for this. And the right thing to do would be to ask him to step down. I mean, it doesn't bring any legitimacy from my perspective, and I think from people that look like me that serve in law enforcement, that anything that Ed Davis comes up with and is part of as far as picking selecting the next police commissioner gives them an illegitimacy, in my opinion, that I can't accept that he had any input in it, that somehow this is the right person. It could be the Pope, and I wouldn't.
And I don't think this should be an indictment on the other committee members.
No, as I said, him. Exactly.
I have the utmost respect for Pastor Bishop Dickinson.
Right.
I think he's a very intelligent, very well dressed, by the way, young brother, and I think he would do a good job. But I do think he would give deference to Ed Davis.
Right.
I do think that he will actually listen to what Ed has to say, because Ed has served in the capacity of commissioner. I also understand that he understands what's happening with the black community. But I think I think she missed a very good opportunity to show her commitment to solid, deep structural foundational change to the police department. She missed that opportunity by selecting this individual.
But I don't think anyone's going to have the conversation with him about his behavior, past practices, like we're having here on that committee.
They won't know it.
I don't see why not. Jamal?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly going to have a conversation with Bishop Dickerson about it. And I know he's a frequent listener and caller sometimes, so, he might even hopefully chime in.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like you say, Wu would ask him to resign. I mean, on the real, I think Ed Davis should resign and recuse himself because really, first of all, he's a gazillionaire.
Right.
Let's start there.
Right.
All right. So, most of these cops, when you leave the commissioner's job, he's a big-time security consultant. I'm sure everybody has seen him on CNN and ABC and Fox and da-da-da-da. I mean, he's doing very good.
And to that point, Jamal, if you go to his website and you look at the people that he's brought over from the Boston Police Department, the vast majority of them look like him. He sprinkled a few Jimmys on the top, but the ice cream is
But he has to make it look good.
right. But I mean, the vast majority of the folks were
Yeah.
part of his command structure.
Yeah.
His chief of staff, his former chief of staff, and even recently he brought in another former deputy witness. So he's got a few of us in there just to make it look good. But it shows even in his when he has the final decision to say it's not very diverse over there at Davis Consulting.
Yeah, I mean, so once again, we all agree, and and I generally I like Michelle Wu, but this was a poor choice, and I think that as the heat comes from the community and others, I mean, they're lucky really it's COVID, because I'd already be out there with clipboards at train stations getting petitions signed or something. You know what I mean? But I think that there's going to be an outcry from both the community and the media. As I said, journalists have already been calling me. This is already a point of discussion. I think everybody recognizes, Ed Davis on that committee is problematic. And two, one, I would push back a little bit on y'all's thing. Even if they wanted law enforcement, they said they don't want anybody from internal. They don't want anybody, controversial like Mamleo or whatever. Two, they could have did. What's the brother who was like the chief of Cambridge, or the brother, the chief of MBTA?
Kenny Green, yeah, right. I'm saying, right.
So even if they wanted to say, oh, we don't want nobody who's the Boston police, we don't want nobody who's, there's still outside folks that they could have got that would have had a bit more insight. And I just wanted to bring this up. Around the time of that vote of no confidence, I believe, I was doing a thing that was, I did a letter to the Department of Justice asking for the Department of Justice to come in and investigate and help reform the Boston Police Department. They have an office in the Department of Justice called COPS, the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, right? And they're responsible for advancing the practice of community policing by nation, state, local, territorial, tribal law enforcement agencies through information and grant resources. They have a whole thing about community policing, a whole training and so on and so forth. I would have loved to implement, and this to me would have been excellent guidelines or guideposts by which to choose a new commissioner.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I understand, you wanting someone who has sat in that chair maybe you could have brought them in and got an interview from them, but I don't think you make somebody like Ed Davis part of your selection committee. It just, it doesn't represent change. It doesn't represent progress. What you're saying to us is that you're looking for someone who will represent the status quo.
Yes. Or go back
Exactly.
to
You're
go
looking
back
for
to old
someone, the
system.
fact that she picked Ed Davis as the one and only cop to be on that search committee for the next police commissioner of the Boston Police Department shows that Wu is essentially trying to steer the conversation or steer who they select by that person. Because when it's a search committee for the next police commissioner of the Boston Police Department, and it's the only cop on that search committee, and the deference is more likely going to err towards that person, then it's whoever they pick as that person is the one that they're essentially trying to steer the selection to.
Well,
The new demographic, right? Not only is he the only cop on there, right, but he's also the only white man. So on a certain level, he is also the representative of white males,
which he's always been.
So even if he wasn't a cop, if he was just Joe Citizen, his experience as a white male is still very much akin to the things that we are now condemning in society and trying to move away from. He's not even what we would call one of the touchy-feely, white males, right?
Yep.
So he's not one of the compassionate white males, right? So not only being representative of the law enforcement thing, but also representative of the white male who is still part and a throwback to what we're trying to move away from.
Right. So, folks, stand by. We're going to take some of these comments from our social media. Go ahead, Tassab.
So Patrick Wilson says, wish there was a larger community conversation about the I really trust Mayor Wu, though not a fan of Ed Davis. Ed Davis goes around the country making money off the great job he supposedly did dealing with us
marathon.
at Occupy Boston.
Okay, right. He just happened to be in the right time, like you said. Jamal said he's cashing in, and this really, because I don't think this is a paid position. This is more of putting on his resume and getting more money and more opportunity for himself.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you go to his website of his company, there's very few. There's a couple of, and that's intentional, so he doesn't show his real true colors. He has a few folks on there.
He's very good at concealing and hiding his true intentions.
Yeah, for those who aren't paying attention.
Exactly. But I think, just to go back to the conversation, I think one of the things that Mayor Wu has shown us is that she's interested in bringing in the same type of government, city government that former Menino had.
Well, that's her
she's,
mentor.
Yeah, she's reaching back.
Yeah, and that's not forward.
Yeah, it's not forward thinking. It's not forward. It's not progressive.
Right.
But she's reaching back and she's trying to do what she's comfortable with, and that's the mentor. The person who mentored her, she's trying to bring in that same structure by looking at the same people that he brought in.
Yeah. Ditko, before we let you go, stand by, Helen. Ditko, before we let you go, any final comments?
Yeah, you didn't answer my original question. My original question was about when the new police commissioner, Michelle Wu, was going to bring in. How do we, as people, know that she won't bring in a puppet, keyword puppet, that's going to serve Michelle Wu and not we the people of Boston, huh?
Right. So that there's always the political side of appointments. These are appointments. These are not people who are elected as the mayor is. So they serve at the will of the mayor, even though they are usually there under contract. So you're always going to have that political side, but you also want people to have some independence when it needs to be. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. That's a question that is more probably geared to asking the mayor. Will this person have that independence? It's not a question that I feel that I can answer as to how this person's going to operate. I don't know. I don't have that insight. So,
all right.
So piggybacking off of what Lily was saying, it's like around the time of vote of no confidence, but not too long after that, Wu and I had to sit down, like I said, and she said she'd reform the police department back then and didn't, and now this Ed Davis. It's like, really? Because she knows what she's doing. Mm-hmm. She was a Menino girl to be his beard at the right time, and Ed Davis was a Menino good old boy. So, so much for no more status quo.
So I think it smacks. Ditko, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Happy New Year.
But again, that doesn't say much at all for progression.
No,
and that doesn't say much
regression.
At all for reform. And for the city of Boston Police Department, and who's going to bear the brunt of that? It's going to be people of color in the community. As
we always do. This is what I'm saying. This is just smacks in the face of any type of progression. This is not progression. It's almost like the opposite when some folks were. When Sagoon was appointed as chief financial officer for the city. Whether you agreed whether he was capable enough, it made sense. People say, okay, it's someone who's been advocating for things in the communities of color when it comes to employment, things of that nature. This here is just the opposite effect of what were you thinking?
Yeah, well, I mean, but it is all. But on the other side of that, I agree with that. But on the other side, it gives encouragement to people like, and I'm gonna throw this name out. Mm-hmm. Who's a current? I think he's a Bureau of Field Services commissioner, Superintendent. Bailey.
Gerard Bailey. One of Jamal's favorite people.
I'm telling you, watch that name. I guarantee you that he would probably be one of the. I would put my money, if I were a betting man, my wife would probably kill me on it, but I would put money on this guy because I think he's of the same mindset of an Ed Davis. Yeah. And I think that would be someone that Ed Davis would push to the committee.
So Jamal, I know you don't have any insight on the current mayor's thinking, but with this doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. Do you think that if she didn't know then, she knows, she has to know now, because I'm sure this is getting back to her, that she would walk this back? Or like you said, because I don't know if Ed Davis would step down on his own.
She's not going to do that.
I don't know. I can only hope. I mean, literally, the only reason I'm hoping that Ed Davis could just be like, listen, I don't want to. When you leave a job like that, and you've already been publicly criticized and whatnot, who wants that again? It's like, I'm already making money in my private life. Let me just go mind my business. So I'm hoping that works. Yeah, because publicly, we're going to have to get the gang back together and get all the folks before who had issues to come in a chorus. Yeah. I mean, because it's not good. No. So hopefully they can get walked back, and I really wish that there was more community conversation about this in advance.
Right.
It could all have been avoided.
We wouldn't be having this conversation now. There's the community conversation now and like I said, the mayor has every right to put whoever she wants on there, but the community also has a right to feel that the people that are there have the best interests in there. We got a few minutes. Want to grab this other call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Good morning, all.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year, brother.
Yeah, likewise. Look, very quickly, this whole thing with Ed Davis, it amazes me when we talk about track record. Look, he's not that far back not to be able to check out his track record. Look, in terms of the Black Community Information Center through the years, we're involved in several police use of deadly force cases. And Ed Davis presided over a few cover-ups, at the very least.
Wow.
In fact, there was one situation where I requested, because I knew he wasn't a big fan of mine, they arranged a meeting with Ed Davis down at headquarters to talk about a particular case that was questionable. Clearly, it was wrong in terms of what had happened.
Mm.
And so what had happened, I arrived at headquarters and was told the meeting was canceled. And come to find out, now other people started calling me, including Pastor Dickerson, saying, well, because I get to headquarters told the meeting was canceled, and I'm getting calls from other folks with Sadiki. They're saying, we heard from then City Councilor Tito Jackson that the meeting was canceled. And the reason the meeting was canceled was because Ed Davis, when he found out that I was going to be involved, didn't want to meet if I was going to be involved. So I'm just saying, we've had black men who were killed by Boston.
So Siddiqui, because we're short on time. Have you voiced your concerns to the mayor's office? Because folks should be flooding that 311 or whatever number about their concerns about this selection.
Yeah, I'm going to send a letter because of the fact, I just learned recently about this whole thing of his selection, and you all kind of provided a reminder. And I said, Ed Davis, you got to be kidding.
Well, Jamal, quickly, because I said we have a lot. You remember when Ed Davis got caught and he was going in the quicksand, he reached out to Northeastern and he got I forget the professor's name, and they came up with this diversity committee in which Mamley was tapped to be part of this. All this conversation. And nothing ever came out of it. It was just talk. It was just kicking the can down the road. It got to the point where I didn't even attend them anymore. But he was supposed to be coming together with some type of resolution to address these things, and he never did. This is the person.
Oh, no. Something came out of that.
What was that?
A report came out of that from Northeastern praising the BPD.
Oh, was that okay? I missed that. Okay, see, I wasn't on the email, but this is what I'm saying, and nothing substantial came out of it. Then
nothing of substance,
right? So how I should phrase it. Well, we got about 2 minutes. I want to give you equal time. Helen, start with you before we let you go.
Wow.
I would say that this definitely takes examination, and if anything, it screams even more as to Michelle Wu, who she really is in terms of the decisions that she makes, because her actions speak much louder than her words.
Thank you. Jamal?
Oh, that's it for me. Down with Ed Davis. He got to go.
I thank you for that. Appreciate it. I mean, this is, like I said, this is not an indictment on the mayor, but this cannot I mean, she can keep him there if she chooses to, but why would you want somebody, if I was Ed Davis, do the right thing for the once and just, like as Jamal said earlier, just walk away. Walk away, because this is not going to be a good look for the mayor. And this is one where Mamleo has tried to be patient.
With Mayor Wu, though, it's with Mayor Wu, though. It's like she hired a comms chief who refers to eyes as chinky, like using slurs, and she hires this person as a communications chief. Like that is a reflection of
we're not
her choices.
Right, go back in the Wayback Machine. Thank you. Thank you, Helen. Happy New Year to you. Continue to listen. We got another hour coming up. Jamal, thank you, sir. Appreciate you as well.
Another comment on the website for Boston Praise. Patrick Wilson says, long as it's never Andy Creed, and Ed Davis still got problems he can't answer from when he worked in Lowell.
Right. Fact. Exactly. That's it. This is what I'm saying. This is a history with this person. And they always say a leopard doesn't change his spots.
Yeah. Take him out of the jungle, but you can't take the jungle out of him. But,
all right, y'all. I'm out of here.
All right, thank you. All right, take care. Thank you, Jamal. Thank you. Thank you, Helen. Appreciate it.
Happy New Year.
You too.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's just wrong in every way.
Yeah.
Not so many ways, in every way. Every way.
Well, I don't think that we can expect Ed to step down on this. I think he's going to stand strong and forward on it.
All right.
I think it's up to her, the mayor, to say, hey, listen, we're going to rethink this.
We're going to keep this out there.
Yeah.
We've got to go. We got to take our break at the top of the hour. We're going to talk about this sewage. We're talking about sewage. I guess it's appropriate segue, right? Down in Alabama.
Alabama.
All right.